It's a beautiful day today and we're reading about some more entitled people. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day today and I hope this episode isn't too frustrating. Enjoy, guys. My mother-in-law stole my collection of vintage skeleton keys to sell at a pawn shop and buy herself a new phone. Part 1. My best friend recommended Reddit to begin with and suggested this subreddit and even said I should have posted it here first. I'm dividing the post into two halves to make it easier to read. My mother-in-law is insanely entitled and my wife's enabling of her has made our marriage very hard at times. Mother-in-law has come to us for money a lot because she keeps spending herself into a hole since she's a hoarder and a shopaholic. Her house is full of garbage, junk and unopened stuff that she never uses. The house is rodent infested too. She has one semi-clean room in the whole building and it's the master bedroom. She's mocked it up to like a little studio apartment with a futon to sleep on and to use as a couch, an entertainment center with TV and streaming, and a makeshift kitchen consisting of the adjoining bathroom, a mini fridge and a microwave. Mother-in-law's also overweight because she eats out a lot. Recently, mother-in-law came to us wanting me specifically to buy her a new smartphone as an unprompted gift and she threw a massive fit when I refused, and I mean like a child temper tantrum kind of fit. Why did she want a new phone so suddenly? Hers was 2 years old, that's literally it. As far as I know, it still worked fine. Even my wife has confirmed this, but mother-in-law was resolute that she deserved a new phone, and before leaving, mother-in-law yelled at us that we're supposed to be pampering her now that she's old. She's 53. My wife also didn't want to buy her mother the phone because she gave her money not long ago, so she could make sure that her bills were paid. Yeah, okay, this is already so frustrating. I have quite a collection of vintage skeleton keys, and I mean good ones, like ones to particular hotels, the large ornate sergeants, brass railroad keys, reading hardware, etc. My collection as a whole should easily be worth $2,000 to $3,000. Some of those keys are super rare. I kept them in a locked display cabinet, but a few days ago I came home to find my entire collection gone. The cabinet had been forced open. I checked the CCTV for the living room and I saw my mother-in-law force open the cabinet with a small crowbar. She then put all the keys in a couple of boxes she'd brought with her and left with them. I called mother-in-law right away and I demanded that she return my collection. She nonchalantly told me that she sold the entire collection at a pawn shop already and used the money for her new phone, and then said it was my fault and she had to do it because I wouldn't give her the money. Oh my god, they sound awful. My wife was seemingly on my side until I said I was going to call the police. She begged me to just drop it. No, you don't enable this sort of behavior, and even suggested I start a new collection. Oh, okay, so you've got two issues here, OP. I refuse to let it go because a lot of these keys are not only expensive, they're irreplaceable. I spent 10 years building that collection, but my wife kept blowing up at me and telling me to just let it go. Is this a joke? Why the hell should you let that go? So I slept in the guest room that night and I sought online help the next day when my best friend told me to try Reddit. I'd been a lurker before, but making an account wasn't hard. My mother-in-law has been trouble in the past, but this was the first time I know of that she'd stolen from us. I needed help, so I asked here. The resounding advice finally made me pull my head out of my bum to realize I was the only one keeping my marriage afloat, and it would likely never get any better if my wife wasn't on my side when her own mother steals something irreplaceable from me. Now to answer some questions I got here. Number 1, how did mother-in-law get into the house? My wife unilaterally gave her a key when we moved in. What? Number 2, why did I have CCTV cameras in the living room? Really? Wouldn't you do that if you had something valuable on display there? Number 3, is mother-in-law on drugs? No idea, she's always been crazy. Number 4, did mother-in-law steal from us before? Not that I've been able to tell, and I have checked everything I could think of. Number 5, what kind of phone did mother-in-law get? Not a clue, but probably one of the cheaper smartphones with the amount of money she got from selling my stuff, unless she's on a payment plan. Number 6, did my wife use my money to placate her mother before? Yes, she did. We primarily have separate accounts, but we do have a joint account that we pay bills with, so it's not used for savings. In 2 years of marriage, I'd say it happened roughly 5 times. Every time my wife took money from the joint account for her mother, she always replaced it on her next payday, though in hindsight, I think she only did so because she knew I'd never let it go, because she would always have an attitude with me for a few days after. Well, like you're not allowed to be upset about that. How stupid. I was in a bad marriage fog before, but this whole situation has snapped me right out of it. Number 7, well, I locked down my credit. Already I have, though I'm not sure that my wife or her mother would be so stupid to do something like that after mother-in-law was recently arrested. I have gotten my collection back and I've hidden it somewhere that my wife and and mother-in-law have no idea where it is. I'll provide more detail in another post tomorrow. Edit, since it keeps being mentioned, yes, I did call the police. Yes, an arrest was made. And yes, my wife is a soon-to-be ex. Know that I'm taking many precautions right now. Whoa, okay, so let's read part 2. Back to what happened that day. Police did come and take my statement a bit over an hour after I called the non-emergency line. I had video footage and the documentation of my collection ready. And then there were some texts I went out of my way to get from mother-in-law to bait her into a confession. I wanted as much evidence as possible so she couldn't lie to the police. When I texted her demanding she get my collection back, she actually lolled at me and told me not a chance, and then even boasted that she thought I was a pathetic son-in-law and my key collection was tacky anyway. Oh, these people are awful. I told her to at least tell me what pawn shop she sold the keys to so I could go and buy them back and how much they paid her for them, and the dimwit admitted it all right away in the text. I had everything I needed for the police before they even showed up. The police took the whole matter more seriously than I thought. I was worried they'd call it a civil matter since the thief was my mother-in-law and she did have a key to the house, but they arrested mother-in-law before long, and the police went to the pawn shop before it closed to retrieve my collection. I got it back from the police after a couple of days, and for the moment I've put the collection in a safe, secure place that nobody can get to. The pawn shop pretty much gave up the entire key collection to the police right away like it was a bag of hot potatoes, though I scrutinized every important key to be brought back. As far as I can tell, it's all there. That was a huge sigh of relief. I took time off work and I barely slept for 2 days because of this ordeal. Also, the cabinet mother-in-law broke into is pretty much a loss since she mangled the lock and doors prying it open. Thankfully, it wasn't an antique and just something I got used for $50, so I'm just going to take it to the dump sooner or later. From her text before, I found out that mother-in-law sold the whole collection to the pawn shop for a whopping total of $300 for a collection of hundreds of antique keys valued at like 2 or 3 grand as total. That low number felt like a punch in the gut to me. The pawnbroker probably knew how valuable the collection could be as a whole. I mean, it's not like hitting a jackpot or anything, but money is still money, especially when a dumb little lady walks in with a box of goodies. Anybody else hear Mr. Krabs laughing? Anyway, the cost of repayment to the shop was supposed to be on mother-in-law, but my wife paid them back out of our joint account instead. From what the shop owner said, mother-in-law told them the key collection belonged to her deceased husband, and she was sick of the whole collection sitting in storage, so they believed her. But just to be clear, she's not a widow. Her husband divorced her and left the state around 15 years ago. Mother-in-law lives off social security and food stamps. She also holds garage sales every few months, and she often demanded our soda and beer cans so she could get the deposit money for recycling them. Mother-in-law doesn't drive. She gets around on an electric scooter that tows a bicycle trailer. She lives in a long paid off house, and she would not be having any money troubles if she wasn't overspending every month, and she always counts on my wife to pick up the slack when she comes up short. My wife and I got in a huge fight when she got home because I had her mother arrested, but I told her I'm done with her enabling her toxic mother. I said I was changing the locks ASAP and I'm banning her mother from the house, and I also said that either we go to marriage counselling or I'd be inquiring about my options for separation from an attorney. I thought my wife would beg me not to do that, but instead she just called me horrible, packed a suitcase and walked out to go to a motel. Yeah, so from what we've read here today, it doesn't sound like you're awful, OP, or horrible. I just sat on the couch and let her go. She repeatedly looked at me like she was waiting for me to ask her to stay, but I didn't. In the morning she texted me that she'd be bailing her mother out and wanted me to transfer her the money to pay for it since I was the one who got her mother arrested. When I said no, all I got back was a sarcastic wow, and that was it. Not too long later, I had a gut feeling and I checked the balance on the shared account, and my wife had taken out a lot of money. I wasn't sure if all that was needed for the bail, so I called the pawn shop later. The owner confirmed that my wife had come in and paid him back the $300 that he'd paid her mother for the keys. He was also quite angry and said that he didn't want any of us in the shop ever again. I understood his anger and weirdly enough had a fairly long talk with this guy, and he understands now that I'm not part of the crazy. I tried to call and text my wife for hours, but she didn't answer. That evening I did manage to find her. I knew which motel she'd go to, and I was right. It was both cheap and not far away. I found her car and then I figured out which room she was in. She looked positively shocked to see me when she opened the door. I confronted her about the money that she'd used from the shared account. She basically said that since I refused to pay her mother's bail after I was the one who had her arrested, she got the money from me another way. Like what, this is all your fault, OP? Oh, this is so bad. Then smugly stated that she wasn't paying that money back into the shared account this time and told me that that's the karma I get before shutting the door in my face. What have you even done wrong, OP? Then said through the door that she'd call the cops on me if I didn't leave. The smug look that she'd given me reminded me of nasty teenage girls when they get their way. It really ticked me off. I already knew that my marriage was pretty much over, but that night it really sank in. I had a long sit down with some old video games to think about my future. The house is rented, so I'm not renewing my half of the lease, and I will soon be a part apartment hunting. The last month of the lease is March, but I may leave sooner depending on how soon I can find an apartment. We have no kids yet, thank God, so that's something else I currently have in my favor. The next day, I changed the locks on the house and I removed all the money from the joint account, and I stopped all automated payments to and from it. I made sure to take only the amount of money I'd put into the account. There was still more than enough in it for me to break even and still leave the minimum required balance on the account. Either way, the cost of mother-in-law's bail and paying back the pawn shop was now entirely out of my wife's pocket, and I don't think she'd even noticed yet, but it shouldn't be long. I've been to a couple of different divorce lawyers already, and I picked the second one since the first one seemed like they were only there for a paycheck. I'll have the divorce papers saved soon. I did love my wife, but it's clear that she didn't love me, so I can't stay with her anymore. She can have her thieving hoarder mummy all to herself now. We both have very comparable income, so I'll be pushing for a clean split divorce. This woman didn't deserve me, and I fell for her act. She didn't even want a husband. She wanted an insurance plan, and I'll be clear, I won't be changing my mind about divorce. My soon-to-be ex-wife can beg and love bomb all she wants, if she even bothers to. I've never been her number one, and I'm not going to settle for being number two in my own marriage. It's over. Edit, yes, I asked the landlord to allow me to change the locks. He was all for it when I told him what happened. All I had to do was mail him a copy of the new key. He doesn't want my mother-in-law to ever have a key to the house again. Wow, I'm so sorry that you had to go through all of this, OP. That was awful. And yeah, obviously the mother-in-law is awful, but there were so many red flags from the wife as well from the very beginning, and how you ended it there talking about how the mother-in-law had a key. That was one of the first red flags. Your wife just gave your mother-in-law a key to the house. Oh yeah, and so much more awful stuff. I'm so happy you're out of there, OP. Definitely onto a better life. And yeah, that was a wild way to start the episode. And this entire time, your wife was acting like it was all your fault, only because you were standing up to the mother-in-law even a little bit. Yeah, you did the right thing, OP. The next one is called Friend Excitedly Invited Myself and 8 Other Friends Over for Dinner, only to ask for us to pay her back the next day. I've got a new friend from my grad school who's been constantly mentioning how she wants us over for dinner so she can cook for us, so she finally set a date. Her menu of food was pretty lackluster, and most of us contributed to her hosting by bringing nice wine and tequila, while leaving her a bottle as a hostess gift. The next day, she sent us all a message asking if we can pitch in $10 each to cover some of the food cost, and to cover the cost of her roommate's tequila, which we didn't even know was opened. I reluctantly sent her the $10, as did some of my other friends, even though I had a few friends think it was absolutely ridiculous to do so they completely avoided sending her anything. Since then, I've sent her a message requesting her to let us know if she expects compensation, especially if she's purposefully inviting us, and to also let us know if we're using her roommate's items, which we're expected to pay for. I got a lukewarm response from her, and now I can't help but think she's tacky and has bad etiquette. Oh my god, yeah, definitely. That's such a tacky thing to do. You don't invite somebody over to your place insisting to cook for them, and then charge them for it later, especially when they weren't expecting that. Yeah, that sucks, and that's so entitled. Yeah, the top comment says your thinking is spot on. Who does this? Invite guests and then ask them to pay? I think this deserves a turnabout is fair play moment in the future. Maybe she hasn't been on the receiving end of one of these situations. Maybe it's time for her to be. The other option is to not invite her to things in the future. If you do ever end up at a restaurant or something, always ask for a separate check at the very beginning without discussing it first. Make it known that you're only paying for yourself. So tacky and very bad manners that your new friend has. There's another update post to the one we read before. I had my wife served for divorce since she sided with her key-stealing entitled mother. Just because I found the thought of it humorous, I'll be referring to my wife as wifey a lot from now on. Also, I know I seem like I'm posting too fast, but remember, this originally started around 10 days ago, and I have not wasted time in getting the divorce started. I also apologize for the length of this post, as I could not keep it short. It really didn't take me long to find and hire a divorce lawyer, and she's mean. Yes, my lawyer is a woman. Okay, don't know why you said that, and she does seem pretty good at her job. She asked me a couple of times if I was really sure I wanted to do this, but once I explained my full story to her and showed some evidence, she agreed with me when I said that I wanted to start ASAP, so she got the ball rolling. Oh, this divorce is going to cost me, but I don't care. I'll rebuild my savings later as a free man. I didn't even want to rent the house I'm currently living in anyway. Wifey pushed me for that. I'd have been happy staying in our old apartment we used to share until we could have actually afforded to buy a house together, but that's obviously never going to happen. I'll be paying a lot less for an apartment once we do separate. Well, yeah, it's a good thing you didn't buy a house together, OP. Before coming home, wifey spent some time at a cheap motel when she bailed her mother out of jail, and she even threatened to call the police on me when I went to see her there. I changed the locks with my landlord's permission while wifey was still away, and I sent her a text saying that I'd done so, but I guess she'd not bothered to look since she never responded. So upon returning home, she ended up pounding on the door and screaming at me to let her in. I just watched her through the doorbell camera and let let her keep it up for a while before she finally got her phone to call me. I was already walking home from having had dinner with my best friend when she called, and I pointed out the text she'd not bothered to read. When I got home to let her in, she was all puffy-cheeked and teary-eyed and red with a bit of cat butt face. I had a new key ready for her, and I told her if she gave a copy to her mother again, I'd be notifying our landlord, as they were already very angry that she'd given her mother a key to begin with. I'm not sure what the landlord could have done, but it was enough to make wifey comply for the moment. Plus, I'm not going to be living here much longer anyway. My mother-in-law still believes she did absolutely nothing wrong. Yeah, of course they do, and is playing the victim to wifey every chance she gets. She's not allowed over anymore, for obvious reasons, and I've been repeatedly called a monster by her and wifey. I've never been more glad that mother-in-law has no friends, because then she'd be telling them all her convoluted version of the story to paint me as a villain. I just know it. She was told how much my key collection is roughly worth and what kind of felony charges she could be facing, though my collection was returned fully intact, so she may get the charges lessened. I'd like to hope she gets a decent punishment at least, but I'm not really counting on the system to throw the book at a manipulator like her. As I said in my previous post, wifey also paid her mother's bail and what she owed to the pawn shop with money out of our joint bank account, and then smugly told me that she wouldn't be putting the money back. Basically, that was a terrible power move, and her only way to try and put all the cost onto me. I've since removed everything I had in that account, and I stopped all future payments to it so she can't spend my money too, and I've changed my passwords to pretty much everything. Wifey flipped the hell out on me for it once she finally checked the account a couple of days ago, because that meant that what she paid for mother-in-law's bail and reimbursing the pawn shop was all in her money only, and now there was no access to my funds to supplement her own with. I just ignored her tantrum and went to the home office to watch anime on my computer. She banged on the door for a while demanding I talk to her. I just stayed quiet and put headphones on. Wifey has repeatedly demanded that I drop all charges against her mother, and even said that if I really loved her, I would not only stop all of this, but I'd cover the cost too. Wow, how dare they? When I kept on refusing, she moved into the spare bedroom. She tried to kick me out of the master bedroom first, but I made it clear that I'm not giving up the master bedroom when she's the one at fault. She tried to start taking my stuff out, but I just blocked her while pointing my finger at her face and said no, like I was talking to a dog. She ended up crying and saying I was demeaning her, but I didn't care. Then for some more deception on her part, she admitted to me out of pure spite that until this mess had started, she'd been planning on letting her mother come live with us full time soon because of the state of her hoarder house. She boasted that she was just going to move her in while I was at work. I told her we were supposed to be equal partners before all of this happened. Oh my god, they're just showing how awful they are, and I was sick of her unilateral decision making, and as long as I'm paying 50% of the lease, her mother will not be living here, and if she tried, I'd throw all of her mother's stuff out immediately. Wifey looked like she wanted to explode and stormed off to have a drink and a loud phone call with her mother in the kitchen. I just started removing her stuff from the master bedroom and I left it in the other room for her. I've put a new lock on the door to the master bedroom too. I had wifey served at her job, which she said really embarrassed her in front of her colleagues, and she flipped out on me again once she got home. Apparently she didn't take my threats of divorce seriously until those papers were actually in her hands. She said I couldn't do this, but I told her I was done. She made it more than clear where she stands. I told her I learned a rather interesting phrase online: when people show you who they really are, believe them. And she's clearly shown me who she really is, and it's not the woman I fell in love with. That woman disappeared and got replaced with an entitled mummy's girl who refuses to act her age right after we got married, which makes it pretty obvious that she did that intentionally. At this point, I don't think she ever loved me, just my wallet. I can't stay married to a woman who conned me into marrying her. Then she started screaming at me that she wasn't a gold digger, so I asked her if she would have been inclined to stay married to me if I would have done all the same things to her. She tried to deny it at first and then looked around like she was trying to find a better answer. Then she just gaslit to deflect as usual, but I had none of it. I told her right then and there that I'm not renewing the lease on the house with her because I don't want to live with a petulant woman child that I can't trust, and if she wants to keep the house, she can go ahead and start a new lease to move her mother in once I'm gone. Finally, that's when the real waterworks started. She said that I was destroying our family, and I said, what family? And I pointed out how we don't have kids, and her mother is more important to her than me. We have no family. Then I just walked away. She loudly cried in the living room for hours, but I ignored her. Now she's giving me the hardcore silent treatment and won't look me in the eyes. I'm actually enjoying it, which just seems to make her angrier. As an added bonus, I warned my current landlord about wifey wanting to move her mother in. I gave him all the details I had about mother-in-law, the state of her hoarder house, and how much of a deceptive mummy's girl wifey is. And I warned him that if he let my mother-in-law live in any property he owns, she'd turn it into an utter disaster. He thanked me for telling him and is now going to let wifey renew the lease on her own if she tries. He'll be advertising the property soon. Wifey has no idea yet, and probably would have just barely been able to afford the house with her mother's help anyway. One more thing. Yesterday somebody warned me to take my name off the joint bank account entirely so so I wouldn't be on the hook for any overdraft. I took that to heart and I went to the bank to get it done. Only took a few minutes to do it, and the bank is 10 minutes away by car. All good now. I've been working from home lately, so I had the time. All statements from the account were already printed and given to my lawyer too, so I can wash my hands of it. Edit, I don't know if it's the same rules everywhere, but the bank had no problem removing my name from the account as a co-signer when I pushed for it. There were no debts on the account and had plenty more than the minimum balance. The bank likely did tell wifey, but whether or not she knows I did it doesn't matter as she's currently not talking to me. Edit number 2, I've noticed a few comments pointing out how it was completely unnecessary I pointed out my lawyer is a woman. Looking back on it, I did write that like a complete jerk. I was just rather excited in the moment about it. No, that's not an excuse. I acknowledge that. But how fast this lawyer helped me just made me so happy. I'll make sure not to sound like such an idiot when speaking of her again from now on. Wow, what an absolute adventure. That was so wild. Yeah, we need to read something wholesome so bad. Promise to love me every day. No, that's future. I'll love you every now. Oh, that's so cute. And also the photo of the little kittens too. Oh, this one's by That Doodle Guy. We used to read That Doodle Guy wholesome memes like in every single episode, but we haven't had one in a while. It's good to see them again. Tiredness, problems at work, stress, 6-year-old me asking my dad to play with me. My dad. Oh yeah, that's so beautiful. And I also need to go watch that episode. SpongeBob is also really beautiful. Relax, you're gonna figure it out like you always do. Yeah, 100%. Really good wholesome memes today. And that's a beautiful spot to end today's episode. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful time. And if you did, make sure you let me know down below and make sure you like and subscribe. And the comment of the day today goes to Drayden's Den. Well, fresh off the press, love to see it. It's 6 a.m. for me and I haven't slept, so I know what I'm listening to while I do. Good night, Vincey. Oh, that's so awesome. Nothing will put you to sleep faster than a Vincey episode. No, I'm joking, of course. I think they're pretty fun episodes. But yeah, that's so awesome and I really appreciate the support. And I hope you had a good sleep. Okay, I'm out of here. Thanks again for all the support, guys. Make sure you look after yourself and make sure you have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. And you know what I'm about to say because I say it every single day. Bye!